Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. First off, what is the engine coolant temperature sensor, or ECT sensor? Think of it as a thermometer for your car's engine. It's a small but vital component that measures the temperature of the coolant flowing through the engine. This information is then sent to your car's brain, the engine control module, or AC. Why is this so important? Well, the ECU uses this temperature data to make critical adjustments for optimal engine performance. When the engine is cold, the ECU might enrich the fuel mixture for a smooth start and fast warm-up. When it's at operating temperature, the ECU adjusts the fuel trim, ignition timing, and even controls the cooling fans to keep everything running perfectly. So, the ECT sensor is constantly talking to the ECU, making sure your engine is happy. Now, let's talk about the code itself. P0118 means the ECU is seeing a voltage signal from the ECT sensor that is higher than the expected range. In simple terms, the sensor is telling the ECU that the engine is extremely cold, even when it's not. This is usually due to a break or a short in the sensor's circuit, causing a high resistance reading, which translates to a high voltage signal. The ECU interprets this impossibly high voltage as an error and triggers the check engine light. So, what symptoms might you notice besides that pesky light? One of the most common is difficulty starting the engine, especially when it's warm. Because the sensor is telling the ECU the engine is freezing cold, it injects way too much fuel, essentially flooding the engine. You might also experience a rough idle, poor fuel economy, and even black smoke coming from the exhaust. Another big clue is your radiator fans. They might run constantly, even right after you start the car, or they might not turn on at all when the engine gets hot, which could lead to overheating. Okay, let's get our hands dirty and talk about how to diagnose this problem. The first suspect is, of course, the ECT sensor itself. But before you rush out to buy a new one, let's check a few things. Start with a visual inspection. Are the wires frayed, broken, or melted from touching a hot engine part? A lot of times, the problem is just a bad connection. Next, you'll want to check the coolant level. A low coolant level can cause the sensor to read incorrectly because it is exposed to air instead of coolant. Make sure your coolant is topped up to the proper level. And always remember, never open the radiator cap when the engine is hot. If the wiring and coolant level look good, the next step is to test the sensor. You can do this with the engine off. You can measure the resistance across the sensor's terminals. The resistance should change with temperature. You can find the specific resistance values for your car's sensor in a repair manual. A simpler check is to use a scan tool with live data capability. Watch the coolant temperature reading as the engine warms up. If the reading is stuck at a very low temperature, like -40 degrees, or it jumps around erratically, the sensor is likely bad. You can also check the reference voltage going to the sensor from the ECU. With the key on and the sensor unplugged, you should see about 5 volts at the connector. If you don't have 5 volts, you might have a wiring issue or a problem with the ECU itself, though ECU failure is rare. Let's say you've confirmed the sensor is the culprit. The good news is, replacing an ECT sensor is usually a straightforward and inexpensive job. It typically just screws into the engine block or thermostat housing. Just be prepared for a little coolant to spill out when you remove the old one. Have the new sensor ready to go to minimize the mess. After you install the new sensor and top off the coolant, clear the code with your scan tool and take the car for a drive. So, to recap, P0118 is a high voltage signal from the coolant temp sensor. It can cause hard starts, poor mileage, and issues with your cooling fans. Start your diagnosis by checking the wiring, connector, and coolant level. Then, test the sensor itself. In most cases, it's a simple fix that you can likely do yourself. I hope this video helped you understand the P0118 code. If it did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more DIY car repair videos. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.